drive. Tatum the finish. It is Banner 18. The mission commanding is mission accomplished.
What's up, everyone? This is Noah Dalzell, and I'm here with another episode of You Got Boston, a news edition in which I followed up on a story that I think fans were somewhat interested in after Summer League, and that's the story of Charles Bassey, who wasn't initially on the Summer League roster and then is just there for the first game. And I was in Vegas, and all of a sudden we're like, "Who is that guy?" And then we figured out that was Charles Bassey, who has spent the last 3 years of his NBA career on the Spurs, the previous year with the Philadelphia 76ers. And effectively, he came in and was the best player on the team for 3 games. And so, he wasn't expected to play the entirety of Summer League, so he wasn't with the team for the final 2 games. But I was still just kind of intrigued of like, what was that about? And is there a chance that they sign him moving forward? And then the last couple of days, there have been a lot of reports that he is, probably going to go overseas. Um, that Partizan Belgrade, a Serbian club, was interested in him. And so I talked to some people that are kind of familiar with the situation, familiar with kind of a lot of the dynamics at play here. And I just wanted to report a couple of things that I learned. One, he's not currently planning on going overseas. That seems to be pretty unlikely and almost like a last resort type of thing. And right now, I think he feels pretty confident that he's going to play in the NBA next season. So I just saw a lot of headlines that were like, Charles Bassey is not going to, he's headed overseas, he's heading to Partizan. I don't think that that's currently the case. And so he currently still views the Celtics as like a top destination and really, really wants to end up in Boston. And that's not me saying that that's going to happen, but that's a top priority for him. He loves the culture. He loves the fact that they've been in the playoffs routinely. It's a culture of winning, the coaches. He really enjoyed his Summer League experience. He talked about that with us on the record right after the first Summer League game that he played, in which he came in and had he was 7 of 8 from the field in 18 minutes, and everybody was like, kind of, who is this guy? Because he outplayed the Celtics' other front court rotation players. So he really wants to come to the Celtics. We'll see whether it works out. Right now, Boston has one remaining roster spot that's open, but JD Davison was waived to clear that spot, and they're just below the second apron. They are not going to go into next season, I don't think, above the second apron, even though they can make moves during the year. But I don't see why they would do that because, like Brad Stevens told us, Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday, those trades happened because of the second apron, because of the basketball penalties associated with the second apron. So for now for the Celtics to go ahead and sign guys to get above that, I don't think that's going to happen. There is some concern just around the league around his injury history. He's suffered multiple knee injuries, ACL tear, patella fracture. Last year, he suffered an MCL sprain. So he's had kind of a long history of knee injuries. And sometimes that can spell like this is going to be the rest of your career. Sometimes you have that. And then, by age 25, 26, you find a rhythm and a groove and, you don't continue having those injuries. So I don't know what the rest of his career is going to look like. He did play in a back-to-back with the Celtics at Summer League. So he did kind of demonstrate that he's able to do that. And obviously with guys with various injuries, like that can sometimes be a challenging thing, especially knee injuries. So that's kind of the status with him right now. If the Celtics were to sign him, they would probably have to make some additional moves. Guys right now like Anthony Simon, Georges Niang, that when they first were acquired by the Celtics, I didn't necessarily think that they were going to keep those guys. Now we're in August. I think the chance that they're staying with Boston long term much higher. So we'll see, but they need to shed some additional salary if they're going to sign a 15th person to the roster. Charles Bassey, to me, is an intriguing candidate for a number of reasons. First, just if they're trying to be competitive at all, which I know there's a lot of dispute around here whether or not they are, because obviously it kind of makes sense from a team building standpoint, like, okay, kind of tank a year, get a good draft pick, and then come back the following year. But at the same time, they have a lot of talented players on the roster. Like if they keep Anthony Simons, like that, they have Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Peyton Pritchard, who I think is going to have a really good year. Like Georges Niang, I know people are not like obsessed with him, but he's a 40% career 3-point shooter. Sam Hauser, like there's a lot of talent on this team still. You still have the identity of a championship organization. It's the same coaching staff, Joe Mazzulla, everything. So I'm probably a lot higher than some of you guys on where this team could be next year. Therefore, I think this team's going to be better than people expect. And so we'll see what moves kind of happen. But if they want to be decent, the front court is the biggest question by far. And Bassey, to me, seems like one of the best options out there. We'll see whether another team grabs him. If he does end up going overseas, it's not, obviously right now, it seems like that's less likely from kind of the people that I've spoken with. But he may end up going overseas if opportunities don't present themselves. I'm sure guys like O'Shea Brissett and Lamar Stevens and Lonnie Walker also thought that they weren't going overseas. So things can quickly change. But right now, it's Neemias Queta and Luka Garza and Xavier Tillman. And, Xavier Tillman had a knee procedure last year. Neemias Queta, Bobby Manning reported, had a knee surgery this summer. And Luka Garza really has not been a proven NBA player at all. He's played very small doses. So to me, like, I do have a lot of hope in Queta. I think Queta can be a 12-12 guy if given the opportunity. And right now it looks like he's slated to be the team starting center. Like that's kind of where things seem to be headed. But he did have off-season knee surgery. Obviously, just being that size, you're more prone to injuries. And so if Queta goes down with something, even if it's a sprained ankle for a month, hopefully that doesn't happen, but that happens, like they're really, really thin in the front court. So to me, Charles Bassey seems like he'd be a great option. I'm not sure how realistic it is from the team standpoint, but I had kind of thought the ship had sailed and that he was definitely headed overseas, and that's not the case. So just wanted to go on here and report that. If you look at his per 36 numbers, I looked at this yesterday from last season. They're pretty impressive. Like per 36 minutes last year, Bassey averaged 15.1 points, 14.6 rebounds, and 2.9 blocks per game. And just for reference, and I don't want to put these two guys against one another because they're in two different situations, but Queta averaged 12.9 points, 9.8 rebounds, and 1.8 blocks per 36 minutes. Queta played a little bit more too, so his sample size is probably closer to being accurate. But Bassey was looking pretty good. He appeared in 36 games last year, and then he suffered a knee injury midseason, and that's kind of been the biggest concern with him. Through 4 seasons in the NBA, he's appeared in 113 games. He was drafted 53rd overall by the 76ers, and so it's been a lot of just trying to stay on the court for him. But when he has been on the court for extended periods of time, like there have been a lot of good moments, and he's the second player in NBA history to have 14 rebounds, 4 blocks, and 4 assists in less than 20 minutes played. He did that with the Spurs last year. He's the first player in league history to do that off the bench. So, there's potential. When I was watching him at Summer League, I was thinking to myself, like, this is a guy who clearly, plays with a ton of energy, can rebound the ball, can block shots. He didn't belong in Summer League, and that makes sense because he's played in the NBA for 4 seasons. But I think from a showcase standpoint, it made sense to show the league, to show the Celtics that he's healthy. And he came in and through 3 games, I think he really showed that. And now we'll see if anybody picks him up. But he's very much looking to make an NBA return next season, to continue to playing in the NBA. And I think from what I saw, he looks like an NBA player. And obviously these backup bigs, they're all flyers. They all have something fundamentally like that you're not sure about. Otherwise, these guys would get bigger offers. I mean, you saw what Luke Cornett commanded this summer. Like if you're a solid center without any big red flags, like you get a 30-40 million dollar deal potentially. So Charles Bassey is certainly not looking at that. I would imagine that he's looking at more of a minimum contract. But I think he'd be a great minimum signing for the Celtics because you have him, you have Queta, you have a little bit more injury insurance for both of those guys now that you have 2 of them. So it just depends on whether they make any additional offseason moves and whether they view him as the most serviceable backup big right now. Amari Williams, who had a pretty rough summer league, but I don't read too much into that stuff, but he had a pretty rough summer league. He was drafted 46th. He has yet to sign his 2-way contract with the Celtics. Max Shulga officially signed his this week. I think they're still planning on signing him, so I don't think that's a red flag or anything, but he'll probably spend a lot of time in Maine. He's a little bit more raw. He doesn't have right now like the rebounding prowess, he just seems like he's a lot younger. And he's not that young, but he's just new, and there's going to be a learning curve for him. So I don't think he's going to come in right away and play minutes in Boston. So we'll see how that looks. But to me, you have Neemias Queta, you have Charles Bassey. That gives you a little bit more flexibility. Obviously, Luka Garza is somebody that they believe in. They prioritized signing him right away. Xavier Tillman, we'll see if he can revert back to like the first, his earlier years. He obviously didn't play much last year and seemed a little bit hobbled just when he did. So he dealt with some knee injuries as well. I mean, it's tough with, these bigs, it's hard to stay healthy. And so the ones that are really durable, it's a great, it's a great thing because on top of being talented and 7 feet tall, like if you're routinely available, that's a separator. That's why I think Al Horford is one of the most valuable, non-star bigs in the NBA because he's very available, he's very dependable, and all indications point right now to Al not being in Boston next year and signing with the Warriors. So we'll see what happens there. But where Bassey has been the last 3 years with the Spurs, it seems like that chapter is closed. They signed Luke Cornett, so they have their backup big. And so it would be kind of funny if the Celtics swapped Luke for Charles Bassey. But I think the injury thing is a real concern, and that's what teams can potentially be worried about. Is just if you look at his history, there's been a lot going on, but he's healthy right now, and so that may be enough. That may be enough to give him the opportunity to stay in the NBA. Once you go overseas, it's a lot harder to come back. I talked to Jared Sullinger about this a couple years ago, but he's had an incredible career in China. And if he was in China, I think that you would see, if teams were going back to players in China and bringing them back, Jared Sullinger would have already been back in the NBA. So it's not that once you go overseas, you can't come back, but it's just really hard once you're out of kind of the NBA ecosystem. So he's right on the cusp right now. I'll continue following up on this story for those that are interested. Will just be another guy in the front court that could give you some athleticism, some energy, some rim protection, some burst, all of that. And I liked what I saw out of him at Summer League. I thought he played hard and generally played well. The first 2 games were definitely better than the third, but still, I think there was a lot to like about just the way he impacted winning on the floor. And when I looked back at it, and I was like, nobody really had a great Summer League for the Celtics, but they still won 4 out of 5 games. I think he was the big reason why they were able to kind of find their footing early on and beat a Memphis team, beat a New York team that both pretty talented teams with NBA players. So that's all for now. That's just my news report on the Charles Bassey story. Still not sure just exactly how interested the Celtics are, but I don't think that door is completely shut the way that it appeared. I do think that he's still eyeing a return